Good Saturday morning, everyone. Starting off the 8 a.m. hour with a live look out over downtown Denver, glowing in that sunshine. We're already in the low 60s and gearing up for a beautiful, beautiful day. There are a couple of showers and then some storms out on the eastern plains that you're definitely going to want to keep an eye out for. And we're going to get to those details in just a few minutes. But first, we want to wish you good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Anusha Roy.
And I'm Mark Salinger. We appreciate you spending part of your Saturday with us. Want to bring in meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and this is the appropriate time to say, Chris, happy meteorological summer to you, sir. We need like a balloon drop and some party favors.
We don't have any confetti or anything.
Yes. Maybe I'll just cannonball into a pool or something to celebrate.
Well, you got one behind you, so.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just cannonball on in, but in the meantime.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Get out with you guys.
Oh, yes. All that early June energy. Now, the good news is for us here into the eastern plains later on this afternoon, we are going to be looking at a threat for severe weather, but in the metro area, the threat for severe weather looks notably lower than what we dealt with in the last couple of days. And it does warm on up and gradually dries on out as we head over the next few days as well. So I know the last 11, 12 days, it has been so busy severe weather-wise. We had the Yuma hailstorm last Monday, May the 20th. Of course, the Greeley storm on Tuesday, and of course, the horrendous hailstorm we had on the north and east sides of the metro area just on Thursday night. I will say in the metro area, the threat for severe weather looks notably lower than what we had earlier on this week. Eastern plains, it does unfortunately look like we could be dealing with some pretty nasty storms later on this afternoon. These shower and storms will pull east. One or two possible for us here in the Denver area. The severe weather threat is low in the Denver area, not nil, but low. Then those shower and storms will pull east. But those temperatures right now already in the 60s for us here in Denver. We'll get up into the mid 80s for today, so it's going to be pretty warm. In fact, likely our warmest day so far this year. And those temperatures running a few degrees above the average for us across the eastern plains and across most of the state. That 7-day forecast, it's a pretty toasty one with our average high in the upper 70s for the start of June, but we'll be near 90 for us tomorrow and most of next week.
Well, we are waiting to find out if insurance companies will be declaring this week's hailstorm a catastrophe. It was one of the biggest in years. It dropped up to baseball-sized hail across the northeast side of town. Now drivers and homeowners are just beginning to tally up that damage. Kim Heath of Central Park is creating the list of hail damage around her house. She says she knew it was going to be bad when she saw what it looked like outside on her front porch.
The hail was coming so fast, it was exploding on the ground. Pretty much all of our neighbors' cars have damage up and down the street. We have at least 8 screens that are damaged. We have one window that's broke.
I mean, we're hearing that kind of damage all across Colorado, eastern plains in specific. The cost of repair still unknown. How much damage will determine if insurance companies can declare this a catastrophe and then bring in more resources as homeowners begin to file their claims.
And Green Valley Ranch, just east of Central Park, was also hit really hard on this latest storm on Thursday night. The area saw a lot of damage as well.
Look at all the leaves.
That shoveling during the summer. You got some leaves, you got some hail, and you need a shovel to do that. Break out the snow shovels. While the sun helped clear a little bit of the hail, people were still clearing out all day yesterday. People in Green Valley Ranch tell us that the storm dropped up to golf ball to baseball-sized hail there.
Felt like it was like an AK, like somebody was shooting. Then I looked outside and saw the hail, and I was like, oh, wow, here we go.
My house is shaking. That's all I can say. And I thought the windows were going to break because it was so loud and pounding and just like somebody was throwing like snowballs at your house for like, 30, 45 minutes.
Pretty good description of it, of how it sounded for anybody who was in that storm. It just pounded, constant boom, boom, boom. Damaged siding, broke windows, took down plants, you name it. It's going to be a long time for everything to get cleaned up. Time to start filing those insurance claims. Make sure you have the money to do that.
And know that this is going to speak to a lot of people. If you have hail damaged car, the first thing that you're going to need to do is snap some photos. That's going to be really helpful when you get in touch with your insurance company and file a claim. If you know a reputable auto body shop, make sure you go there. Keep in mind, you could also ask your insurance company for a shop. All of this, though, is depending on what kind of insurance you have, because while the law requires you to have insurance, it's not necessarily covering a hail claim.
We'll cover you for hail damage like we saw last night on your car is that optional comprehensive coverage. So talk to them about, do I have that coverage? And then also, what is my deductible on my comprehensive policy?
And if you're lucky enough to have avoided hail damage so far this season, consider this a good reminder to check your own coverage for the next storm.
Moving to your national headlines now, former President Donald Trump remains unrepentant and often defiant, casting himself as the victim after a New York jury found him guilty on 34 counts in his falsified documents trial. The former president railed against the history that he's made as the first former president convicted of felonies. As supporters gathered outside of Trump Tower flying a Trump or death flag, inside, Mr. Trump insisted that he had wanted to take the stand in the trial in his own defense, had the choice, and chose not to.
I wanted to testify. The theory is you never testify, because as soon as you testify, anybody, if it were George Washington, don't testify, because they'll get you on something that you said slightly wrong.
Thursday's verdict is galvanizing the GOP behind him. The Trump campaign saying that they raised a massive $35 million online in the hours after the conviction came down. With Republicans rallying around him, there's virtually no chance that he'll be kicked off the ticket for the Republican presidency this upcoming November. Meantime, President Biden, who has kept his distance from Trump's legal troubles, had this to say.
It's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict. The justice system should be respected, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down.
To voters, only about 3 in 10 voters in key battleground states say that they've been following Trump's legal issues closely. Some 10 to 20% of independents suggest they'd be less likely to vote for Mr. Trump if he was convicted, even as 2/3 of all voters say that a guilty verdict really wouldn't make a difference for them.
And it was a major setback for a group of women in Texas suing over the state's abortion law and what constitutes a medical exemption. This week, the state Supreme Court ruled the ban only applies when a person is at risk of death or serious physical impairment. But the challengers argued the ban should be applied to additional medical circumstances, particularly when a pregnancy is unsafe for the mother or when there's a condition that the fetus will likely not survive. The High Court ended up reversing a lower court order and then ruled against the women, saying they failed to prove the abortion ban violates the state constitution.
Also in Texas, a new military base is up and running on the Texas border in Eagle Pass. Governor Greg Abbott was in Eagle Pass on Friday to greet the first 300 Texas National Guard soldiers at the new forward operating base there. The governor announced that Operation Lone Star will be relocating to the base from their current headquarters in McAllen, Texas right now. The 80-acre base with 95 buildings will house up to 1,700 soldiers with the capability of more if needed. Abbott says the base will save taxpayers money while improving the quality of life for soldiers.
This base camp is a far superior strategy that, for one, will allow the state to be able to have our troops right on the border itself, but for another, provide the type of housing and other standards of living that improve the quality of life for the men and women who are wearing our uniform, who are serving on our border.
The next phase will be completed in about 2 weeks when another 300 soldiers move in. When the project is finished, 3 other base camps will be shut down. Abbott says the base is necessary for the state's response to border security efforts.
Today is the beginning of Pride Month. It is an annual celebration and recognition of those who identify as LGBTQ+. It takes place in June as a way to pay tribute to the Stonewall Uprising. During the early hours of June 28, 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn, which was a gay bar in New York City. The ensuing riots lasted several days and became a catalyst for the gay rights movement. The area around the inn was designated a national monument in 2016. The rainbow flag, which became the symbol of pride, made its debut in 1978. It was created at the request of San Francisco City Supervisor Harvey Milk for the city's pride celebrations. Milk was one of the first openly gay elected officials in the U.S. There will be pride celebrations throughout the month here in Denver and around the state.